Welcome back for another PI video, episode 4. So, technically we should be setting up Planet 4 in this video, but since we've been doing the same type of setup in every video, I went ahead and set up that planet because we did make another minor adjustment from what you saw last episode to now, and I'll go over that, and I want to kind of talk about some other finer points in PI that would probably help explain why I do some of the things that I do. So, we still have the non-CS crystals on our lava planet here, as you can see, and these have been, excuse me, these extractors have been down for, I don't know, probably 6 hours, and we're still running these 5 off of P0, and that's a really good thing, which that's kind of what I'm going to be going over in this video. And then we have the barren planet. But this barren planet has changed. If you remember in the last episode, this was doing reactive metal, but we changed it because we're slowly starting to build like a plan and everything. So we needed to have precious metals, and barren is one of the planets that noble metals comes off of, that or plasma. We have no plasma in the system at all, and we only have 2 barren planets, and barren planets are the best for process because they have the smallest radius and they allow you to put 24 factories. So we want to reserve that other barren planet for a process planet if we choose to use one. So, and I also realized that the gas planet here in this system actually has better density for reactive metals, and we'll kind of show that right here. Base metals right here, and these were just, it was just so much better on this planet. So what I did was, barren planet, which was doing base metals, is now doing nobles, and then I set up the gas planet here to facilitate the reactive metals. And then our ice planet over here is still doing toxic metals, and these 5 are still running as well. Now, I made that switch on the barren planet like 12 hours ago, so the extractors aren't actually lined up. They're a little offset. So as you can see here, these guys still have about 11 and a half hours to go. Same with the gas planet here, but we're going to actually cut these prematurely, just so we can line everybody up and get everybody kind of started on the same cooldown. Maybe, I don't know, I haven't decided. I might let these guys run because there is a downside to actually cutting extractors early, and that's also kind of what I want to talk about in this video as well. But actually, yeah, I'm probably just gonna leave them, you know, as is. I can come back on in 12 hours and start them up again if I want, or let them the P0 kind of process, which has been working out pretty well. So we're gonna go ahead and just real quick, no real big adjustments on these planets here. We're just checking real quickly. Got, you know, we're still, you know, in density here for this one, so we're gonna start extraction on that one because that one's got 19 on it, and then this one's got 10, so it puts 29. Our target's 30. We still have P0, so this planet is good to go. And then we're just gonna go and restart the ice as well, and it's okay if we actually drop a little below 30 because we have been running for about 6 hours without the extractors, and we've been picking up that slack a little bit. So look at this, 27 on this guy, right? Good to go. This planet is going to, on clockwork, be producing exactly what we need on these 5 every single day. And it's 29 on the last, 10 on this, you know, so we're looking at 39 on this planet alone. So we can guarantee that these 5 on this planet at least will run all the time, and that's important. That's very, very important. And the reason that's important, the reason I recommend actually running your factories with the extra P0, because as you start scaling PI, you need, and you start planning a lot more complex manufacturing using PI, you need to have some guarantees in what you can produce every day. And the best way to facilitate that is to make sure, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that those factories are running 24 hours a day. Even if you don't reset the extractor for maybe 6 hours, just like you saw there, they're still running, and we can guarantee and we can bank on those output numbers for everything that's down the chain, right? Here is our spreadsheet, a little different if you've been paying attention. Broker fee is lower. I've been focusing this character's broker relations skill. We're currently training the last level of that, which is 5. So she's got broker relations 4 going. So broker fee is now down to 1.76, which gives us a little bit better margins. And pretty much on all these, we have 5 factories on all these planets. Toxic metals, we're going to get 4,800 a day on that, no problem. Reactive metals, I think we're going to do fine there as well. Structures, probably a little less because the density is not that great on that lava planet. And then precious metals is going to be our problem piece. You're always going to have one P1 that's going to just not perform as well as the others, and that just has to do with density, what that planet's, kind of makeup is. Now, since I expect this to be the case, we do still have 2 planet slots available to us. If we don't decide to do a process planet, we have the other barren planet, and we would probably just set up a additional precious metals, same configuration, just doubling down on that. I want to run these 4 for a couple of days and start to really look at what we're getting every day and making sure all these 5 are working. I don't really have to keep track of the numbers coming out of the customs office or what's in my inventory. What I really need to see is every time I log on to reset extractors, if those 5 factories are still running, then I know that this number here is what I'm getting, and I can plan for that downstream if we decide to go P2 or P3. That's a good practice to get used to because it allows you to take a lot of the guesswork out. One of the big questions I get a lot on my PI videos, and what I'm going to answer in today's episode is it worth actually going to P2 to sell, or going to P3 to sell, or even all the way to P4 to sell? And the answer is very, very simple. It depends on your customs office tax. The reason is because every time you import or export, the tax rate is, you're going to pay a tax rate on the value of that commodity. For high sec, I would not recommend doing P2 or P3, especially not P4, because you're probably going to be paying that Concord tax regardless of what the corp that owns it has set to. The reason why is you get hit all the way down. So for instance, if we have $1 million in value of P1 and we export it at 10%, we're going to pay $100,000 on that. And then when we go to take that P1 and put it into our P2 process planet, we're going to pay another $100,000, given that the tax rate is the same on our process planet. The value of materials that we're handling hasn't changed, but we're in the whole $200,000 now. And then whenever that 1 million of P1 value gets transformed, let's say it gets transformed into 2 million of P2 value, and then we pull that out of that process planet and pay another 10%, now we are in the hole for another 200,000. Total, we're in the hole for 400,000. And then let's say we take that 2 million value of P2 and we stick it in a P3 planet. We're going to pay another 200,000. And let's say that P2's value, when turned into P3, is now 4 million. And when we go to finally export that P3, we're going to pay another 400,000, given it's 10% or whatever. So you have to keep that in mind. You're going to get tagged for that every single time. Now, it just depends on how much you want to, how much ISK you really want to make from PI, and how much you're willing to pay towards taxes. For me, high sec, 10%, P1 all day long. I'll probably actually fill all 6 of these planets with P1, probably another precious metals, and then we might throw like biofuels or something in here, the last planet as well. And what's also interesting too is if we would take all the all the P1 we get from these planets here, and we go into robotics, we would only be able to facilitate 2 robotics factories, which would be about 10 million a day. So if we actually just sold the P1 directly, we'd make 11 and we pay less taxes, right? So a good rule of thumb is if you're paying 10% or more in taxes on your customs office, stick to P1. And then if you have like a tax rate of like 5 or less, you could probably go to P2 pretty easily. I would not do P3 or P4 unless you are like 2.5% tax or less, and probably not unless you're in nullsec. It's a lot easier to do P3, P4 in nullsec because the density is better, the tax rates can be lower. You can actually negotiate with powers that be, whether it be your corp, whether it be your alliance, to get special tax rates if you're providing a service to them. Like I was paying 0 on my customs office in nullsec because I was providing things like nanite repair paste or fuel blocks. So I was able to negotiate a 0 customs office tax because I was providing another service downstream for players in the area. High sec, we really don't have that option. We don't know the people who own the customs office. We're taking the 10% as like a convenience fee, so we're going to stick to P1 and we're going to sell it when we get a certain amount and everything. This series will be tracking the value accumulated based on inventory value. So what we'll do is every time we go out and pick up this stuff, maybe like once a week, maybe once every 3 episodes or so, we'll look at everything that we've got kind of stockpiled in our inventory, and we'll kind of gauge how we're doing and if we want to adjust or anything. So just keep that in mind. Like the customs office tax is going to get you on the in, and it's going to get you on the out for every step from. That's why I don't really, I don't recommend people just running strictly extractor planets and producing P0, because that's just another way to get taxed, right? It's better to just go P0 to P1, one planet, one tax on export, and then take it to the market there. That's what I recommend. Also, we're focusing mainly on the 6 planet, 1 character. How much can you do relatively easily in this series here in the beginning. In the future, we might show scale. When you start going into scale, when you're adding lots of alts, then you're going to definitely want to simplify things as well. So in the past, I've done it where some alts will handle, the P1 for, like, say, one alt does all the P1 for gel matrix biopaste, and then one alt does all the P1 for like data chips, and then I'll have one alt that does nothing but P2 production. So it's got nothing but planets for all that, mechanical parts, consumer electronics, all that stuff that goes into robotics and fuel blocks and all that. And then my mains are usually running the P3 or P4 process planets, the end of the line kind of situation. And then they might run some planets to help kind of bring up some of the lower P1 productions that are out there. And that's another thing too is, the last thing I really want to cover is, why do I recommend producing more P0 than what you use? And a lot of that has to do with how the mechanics of the extraction gameplay work. So let's go to a different planet that is easier to see, and I'll give you an idea. So I don't see a lot of people talk about this, but in the back end of the PI, when you set up an extraction, what happens is, once you hit start extraction, whatever it's your total raw coming out of the planet, that amount is immediately pulled off the planet. And then the game will slowly feed you all of it over the course of your cycle at predetermined amounts for every single sub-cycle. You can actually burn a planet by starting an extraction, hitting apply, waiting the 30 seconds, stopping the extraction, and then starting it again and then applying. You can actually just chain start, stop, extraction, and you will just juice a planet, right? Because all of those materials are taken out the second you start the extraction, and then they are just fed to you over the course of whatever your total cycle is. With that being said, the reason why we want to produce more P0 than we need is if our factories are able to run like 6 or 10 hours after the extractor is actually ended, we're giving the planet time to regenerate some of those resources, because that does take time. I have found that if I produce more P0 than I need, then I don't have to be as strict about getting online and setting those extractors back, and I can be a lot more flexible with it. And also I've noticed that over the course of a week or 2 weeks, I don't have to move my setup as much because the materials will just kind of come back to me. So just like on this lava planet here, even if we dip way below the 30,000 we need, we'll probably, even if we're not in white, we'll probably still kind of chill here and not move everything, because we'll just kind of wait for the resources to come back around. So this is non-CS crystals here, so you can see we're still on it, right? And we can actually stay on this little spot right here for a while and have those 6-hour windows where we're not running extraction at all. And if this dips too low, then chances are another area close by in range will be good to go for moving the extractor heads over. I think it's just best practice too. I mean, obviously you can't control what other people are doing on the planet, especially in high sec. People who don't understand the mechanic, they might be going in there and running 12-hour, 1 hour, whatever, some crazy low cycle, and just juicing that planet out for all it's worth. That's why another reason nullsec is a lot easier for PI, because you do have a little bit more control over who's kind of operating there, and you can, all kind of work together on how you're doing your extractions to not completely dry out a planet needlessly. And like if you decide you messed up and you stop that extraction, yeah, those resources you pulled off are gone. The next time you go to start it again, you're going to see less numbers and less numbers. And so that's why also, even if your yield drops really, really low on day 2, 3, or even, week 2 or whatever, being in the same spot, I can't really recommend moving your whole setup around all the time. Chasing white is nice for short term, but most likely, if you're watching this, you're probably wanting to set PI up for it to be as passive as possible. Maybe you aren't too concerned about min-maxing it, so it's a good strategy to just plan on keeping your setup where it is and get good yield when it's good yield around you, and when it's not, chill out and wait for it to come back around. That's been it's been a really big help for me in doing it, especially when you start adding a lot of characters. If you've got 4, 8, or even 10 characters you're doing PI for, you don't want to go in every day and move all those guys around and set up all those factories. So you become a lot more comfortable with just waiting for those resources and everything. So not to get too long-winded on this episode, but we're kind of caught up now. We're gonna be chilling. I'll probably let these new planets expire, and we'll start them all on the same beat tomorrow morning, and then we'll be looking at our numbers, and then we'll decide what we want to do with these last 2 slots. Also, let me know in the comments if you have any questions. This is the perfect series to answer any sort of questions related to PI that I might overlook or whatever, or I can explain maybe more in detail what methods that I do or whatever. Trying to be as inclusive as possible. I'm trying to be as detailed as possible, but I'm human, and so sometimes I forget about small things that newer people to PI might have questions about. So let me know. That's gonna be it for this episode, though, and I'll see you in the next one.